When we think about the great epic battles between law enforcement and criminals throughout history, we naturally picture something intensely physical.
Right, like bank robbers and shootouts.
Exactly. We picture a bank vault with like 2-foot thick steel doors, motion sensors, laser grids, armed guards. We imagine a heist where the criminal has to figure out how to bypass all that immense, heavy physical friction.
Yeah, because for most of human history, crime was entirely bound by the laws of physics. It's a tangible barrier. I mean, there's a physical risk and a very clear line of engagement, right?
Yeah,
You
Torque.
break the wall, you get the gold.
Yeah.
If you get caught breaking the wall, well, you go to a physical cell.
But when you step into the digital realm, that entire concept of physical friction ugh, it just evaporates.
Completely disappeared.
Right. The vault isn't a concrete room anymore. It's this distributed network spanning continents. The heist isn't a one-night event where alarms go off. It's just this persistent, completely invisible state of being. And the getaway car is, well, just a routing protocol.
Which basically fundamentally rewrites the rules of engagement for everyone involved. I mean, you have law enforcement agencies still operating with these heavy physical world constraints.
Oh, right, like jurisdictions and borders.
Exactly. Borders, bureaucratic red tape, budgets, all while the criminal adversary is just operating in a borderless, almost frictionless void. It's an incredibly asymmetrical battlefield.
And that profound disconnect actually brings us perfectly to the mission of today's deep dive. So, welcome everyone. Today we are looking at some truly wild material, exploring a name that, to this day, sends absolute shivers down the spines of global intelligence agencies.
Yeah, Evgeniy Bogachev.
Right. And we are going to put on our investigative tech journalist hats for this one, you guys, because this isn't just a story about, like, a hacker in a hoodie.
Not even close.
It is a postmortem of how the FBI, coordinating with 11 different countries, spent tens of millions of dollars on the largest cyber takedown in human history, only to completely and spectacularly fail. Okay, let's unpack this.
It really is a story of just staggering proportions.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the resources deployed here, you have to understand that global law enforcement doesn't just casually spin up an 11-country task force.
Right, that's a massive undertaking.
Huge. Local police handle local crimes. The FBI handles federal crimes. So to get 11 sovereign nations to share intelligence and operate as a single unit, the target has to be an existential threat to the global financial system. And Evgeniy Bogachev was exactly that.
Yeah, to even begin to understand how the FBI failed so monumentally, we really have to look at the terrifying scale of what they were actually up against. The moniker attached to Bogachev is the Ghost in the Machine.
Such a fitting name, honestly.
It really is. But he didn't just write a clever piece of code or guess a few passwords. He built the most powerful cybercrime network in history.
What's fascinating here is that network is the operative word. We are talking about an infrastructure, a sprawling, self-sustaining ecosystem of compromised computers.
Like a massive botnet.
Exactly. A botnet, all tethered together and reporting back to a central command structure that he completely controlled. And creating the most powerful network in history requires far more than just coding skills.
Right. It takes serious management.
Yeah, it requires an unprecedented level of dark web organizational genius.
Yeah.
But we need to look at the human impact of this first, because it wasn't just abstract data moving around.
Right. Let's actually walk through how this worked on a practical level for you listening, because the mechanics of it are genuinely chilling. So let's say you're a small business owner.
Okay, pretty common scenario.
You open an email that looks like a standard invoice from a vendor you actually use. You click the attachment, nothing happens.
No flashing red skull and crossbones or anything.
Nope, nothing. Your screen doesn't freeze. But quietly, in the background, Bogachev's malware installs itself on your machine.
And it just sits there, entirely dormant, just waiting. It's basically a highly sophisticated keylogger combined with network interception tools.
So it's essentially spying on you.
Exactly. It waits until you navigate to your business banking portal, you type in your username and password, and the malware captures that. But it actually goes a step further.
Oh, right. This part is wild.
Yeah, it can intercept the two-factor authentication code sent to your device. It locks your screen for just a few seconds, displaying a fake loading message. And in that tiny window, it drains your entire operational budget into an offshore account.
Wow. And now, multiply that small business owner by millions of infected devices across the globe. People often use that cliche of the digital hydra to describe this, like you cut off one head, two grow back.
Yeah, that's a common comparison.
But looking at the architecture of his network, that feels way too simplistic to me. Instead of a hydra, I want you to think of his network like an underground fungal mycelium.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. Law enforcement is running around kicking over individual mushrooms, like the compromised computers or local servers they can actually see. But the actual organism is this invisible, decentralized web beneath the soil. Kicking a mushroom doesn't kill the fungus, it just, pops up somewhere else.
That is a much more accurate way to look at network architecture. And you really have to think of Bogachev not just as a programmer, but as the CEO of a shadow corporation.
Wait, I want to pull on that thread. A shadow corporation. Because if you have millions of infected computers, you can't possibly monitor all of them yourself, right? Are you saying he essentially franchised this malware out?
That's precisely what he did. It's what the cybersecurity world calls malware as a service.
Malware as a service. Wow.
Yeah. A network of that size requires maintenance. It requires technical support for the other criminals who are, renting access to his botnet.
So it's basically a B2B service for hackers.
Basically, yeah. If a lower-level criminal in Brazil rents a slice of Bogachev's network to target Brazilian banks, they might need troubleshooting. Bogachev's organization literally provided customer service.
That is insane.
They built financial laundering pipelines, utilizing these complex webs of money mules to process the stolen funds.
So it's an enterprise-level SaaS company, but for digital bank robbery. He has HR, he has R&D updating the code to evade new antivirus software, he has independent contractors. The ghost wasn't just hiding in the machine. He was running a multinational, highly compartmentalized, illicit enterprise right under the noses of the world's most sophisticated intelligence agencies.
Which is exactly why the response from global law enforcement had to be so historic. Because you cannot arrest a decentralized enterprise with a local subpoena.
Right, which brings us to the operational clash, the phase of the investigation dedicated to seizing the machine.
And this is where the sheer mind-boggling operational scale of the FBI's counterattack really comes into focus. They spent 2 full years meticulously planning this takedown.
2 years of planning, coordinating across 11 different countries, and spending tens of millions of dollars to execute the largest coordinated cyber takedown ever attempted. But, let's pause on the logistics of that for a second.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
My mind completely breaks at the bureaucracy involved here. How do you keep a secret of this magnitude across 11 different countries' intelligence agencies for 2 full years?
It's almost impossible.
I mean, you and I know how hard it is to get 3 friends to agree on a dinner reservation without the plans falling apart. How do you get 11 sovereign nations to synchronize a covert digital strike without a single leak?
It is a logistical and bureaucratic nightmare. That is exactly why it took 2 years. You're dealing with different legal systems, different thresholds for evidence, different privacy laws in every single participating nation.
Right, it's not just one big police force.
No, it requires navigating mutual legal assistance treaties, or MLATs. If investigators track a piece of Bogachev's command and control infrastructure to a server farm in Germany, but the victims were in the United Kingdom, and the FBI in the United States is quarterbacking the operation.
Whose judge signs the warrant?
Exactly. And what happens if the German legal standard for seizing a server requires evidence that the UK intelligence agency isn't legally allowed to share?
Oh man, the red tape, the diplomatic maneuvering required to untangle that is just as complex as the technical hacking, isn't it?
Definitely. And on top of that, you have translation barriers, time zone differences, and the constant paralyzing fear that one local official in one of those 11 countries might be on Bogachev's payroll and tip him off.
Because if he gets tipped off, the whole thing falls apart.
Right. To execute this, they had to heavily compartmentalize the information. Most of the people working on the local warrants had absolutely no idea about the broader global scope of the operation.
Okay, so they navigate this insane diplomatic minefield. The day of the operation finally arrives. They execute the largest coordinated cyber takedown in history, and miraculously, they actually do it. They successfully kill his botnet.
It was an immense technical and diplomatic triumph.
But let's talk about how they technically achieved that, because they didn't just unplug a master computer, right?
No, because there is no master computer. They used a technique called sinkholing. They basically had to map out the entire command structure of his network. They identified the crucial servers that were acting as the dispatchers.
The nodes giving instructions to the millions of infected devices worldwide.
Exactly. On a precise, synchronized countdown, law enforcement agencies across the globe physically seized those dispatch servers, and replaced them with FBI-controlled servers.
Oh, wow. So when the millions of infected computers reached out for their daily instructions on who to rob next, they were suddenly talking to the FBI.
And the FBI just told them to go to sleep. They severed the brain from the body. It was a huge triumph to actually kill the botnet.
They summited the mountain. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because this is where the narrative pivots from a triumphant law enforcement victory to the most baffling technological reality check of the entire saga.
Yeah, the celebration was definitely short-lived.
There is a critical window of time immediately following a strike like this, usually referred to as the 72 hours.
That 72-hour window is the absolute crucible in incident response. When you sever a network of this scale, there is a period of pure chaos on both sides.
Because the bad guys don't know what just hit them.
Right. The adversary realizes their infrastructure has gone dark, but they don't immediately know why. Are they experiencing a catastrophic hardware failure? Did a rival criminal syndicate attack them? Or is it law enforcement?
So the FBI is using those 72 hours to rapidly secure the seized assets, analyze the data on the servers, and basically pour concrete over the severed connections so Bogachev can't quickly reroute the traffic.
Exactly. They're fortifying the walls.
But here is the ultimate gut punch for the FBI and those 11 countries. 5 weeks. Just 5 weeks after this historic, multi-million-dollar, unprecedented global takedown.
It's hard to even say it out loud.
Bogachev rebuilt his entire massive botnet. He spun the whole organism back up. And to add insult to injury, the intelligence showed he did it from the exact same apartment.
Insulting doesn't even begin to cover it. It fundamentally shattered the FBI's operational playbook.
Wait, I need to make sure I'm mapping this correctly. It's like, imagine the FBI spends 2 years tracking down a massive counterfeit money operation. They coordinate a global raid, they burn down the warehouse, smash the physical printing presses, confiscate all the bills.
Right, a total victory on paper.
They are popping champagne. But
Yeah.
they didn't realize the counterfeiter still had the master digital design files on a thumb drive in his pocket. So 5 weeks later, the guy just rents a new warehouse, buys new printers, and starts printing money again from his living room, sitting in a lawn chair across the street from the old place.
That is the perfect analogy. And this raises an important question. How elastic and decentralized must a network be to bounce back from an 11-country, multi-million-dollar strike in just 5 weeks?
How is that even physically possible?
What the FBI learned the hard way is that when you kill a botnet by seizing its servers, you aren't actually killing the weapon. You are merely disrupting the current physical infrastructure hosting the weapon.
But how did the infected computers know how to find him again? I mean, if the FBI was controlling the old addresses, how did Bogachev reconnect to millions of devices?
This is where Bogachev's genius truly shines. He didn't rely on static web addresses. He built something into the malware called a domain generation algorithm, or a DGA.
Okay, what is that?
Instead of all the infected computers reporting to one specific IP address that the FBI could easily identify and block, Bogachev programmed the malware with a mathematical formula.
Oh, a formula.
Yeah. Every single day, that formula would generate hundreds of new, completely random, gibberish web addresses. The infected computers knew the formula, and Bogachev knew the formula.
Oh, wow. So if the FBI blocks today's communication channel...
Bogachev doesn't care. Because he knows that tomorrow, every infected computer in the world is going to automatically search for a brand new string of random letters.
That is devious.
All he had to do was look at the formula, see what random web address the computers were going to look for next Tuesday, and quietly register that domain name himself. The moment Tuesday arrives, millions of computers reach out to that new address, and boom, the botnet is reconnected.
So his fallback protocols were entirely automated.
Completely automated. 2 years of international diplomacy and tens of millions of dollars essentially bought the world a 5-week vacation from his malware.
It just proves that attacking the infrastructure of a truly elite cybercriminal is basically a high-stakes game of digital whack-a-mole. You cannot permanently destroy a decentralized network using centralized physical world law enforcement tactics. The math just doesn't favor the police.
It really doesn't. And the FBI clearly realized that. They understood that going after the machine was a fool's errand. They had to change tactics and go directly after the man himself.
Which leads us to a record-breaking escalation. Since destroying his digital empire didn't work, they decided to leverage the one thing the U.S. government has an abundance of, which is money.
And a lot of it.
The FBI slapped a staggering $3 million bounty on Bogachev's head. At the time, that was the absolute largest bounty ever offered for a cybercriminal.
$3 million is a massive amount of leverage. The psychology behind a bounty like that is fascinating. It's not really meant for the general public.
Right, it's not for a random citizen on the street.
No, it's highly targeted. It's designed to introduce paranoia into his inner circle. It's meant to incentivize his rivals, his network administrators, or opportunistic mercenaries to betray him. It's a classic law enforcement escalation, outspend him, and turn his own ecosystem against him.
But it didn't work. And this is the part of the story where things get incredibly frustrating. Picture this for a second. You're the FBI. You just suffered this embarrassing 5-week rebuild.
A very public embarrassment, too.
But your intelligence is actually quite good. You know his name, you have his photos, you know exactly where his apartment is. You literally have the geographic coordinates showing he rebuilt the botnet from that specific living room.
They knew exactly where he was sitting.
Right. You have a $3 million check ready to hand to anyone who grabs him. So why don't you just kick the door down? Why are we playing games with bounties when you know his exact address?
Because if we connect this to the bigger picture, we run headfirst into a geopolitical reality that is often referred to as the shield. This is where the frictionless digital world violently collides with a very rigid physical world.
Right.
Yes, the FBI knew his exact address, but that address was in Russia. And the reach of international law enforcement, no matter how well funded, abruptly and permanently stops at certain borders.
Right, because there's no extradition treaty between the U.S. and Russia.
Exactly. A $3 million bounty is completely, utterly useless if the target is physically shielded by their home country, a nation that outright refuses to cooperate with Western law enforcement.
It's just a wall they can't cross.
And we have to look at the geopolitical dynamics here. In many of these situations, a cybercriminal who exclusively targets foreign banks and foreign infrastructure and is very careful never to infect computers within their own country isn't viewed as a criminal by their host government.
They're viewed as an asset, or at least like a highly convenient nuisance.
Precisely. If Bogachev is draining millions of dollars from American and European financial institutions and pumping that money into the local Russian economy, why would the local authorities stop him?
They wouldn't.
He is economically bleeding rival nations without the government having to lift a finger or officially sanction an attack.
The shield. It acts as this geopolitical force field. As long as he plays by the unspoken rules and doesn't hack his own neighbors, his government turns a blind eye and essentially tells the FBI, you have no jurisdiction here.
The FBI's jurisdiction is a physical constraint. Bogachev's crimes are entirely borderless, yet his physical body is perfectly insulated by a border. It is the ultimate definition of asymmetric warfare. The FBI basically brought an international arrest warrant to a geopolitical standoff.
So what does this all mean? Which brings us to the surreal, almost cinematic present-day reality of Evgeniy Bogachev's life. This is the final image we are left with, and it is truly wild to conceptualize.
It really is hard to believe.
Over a decade later, after the largest cyber takedown in human history, after the $3 million bounty, the endless task forces, the FBI has essentially given up trying to catch him. He is totally, completely untouchable.
Living his best life, essentially.
Right. He's living openly on the coast of the Black Sea with his wife, his kids, and his Bengal cat.
It's a striking image, isn't it?
Yeah.
It completely shatters all of our preconceived notions of crime, punishment, and justice.
I mean, zeroing in on the Bengal cat, it's the ultimate flex here. It's not just that he got away. It's the sheer audacity of his piece.
Yeah, the complete lack of fear.
You have the combined weight of 11 nations, years of exhaustive planning, tens of millions of taxpayer dollars entirely focused on ruining your life. And your response is to live a picturesque, relaxed life, petting an exotic cat by the beach.
It's like something out of a spy thriller, but the villain just retires comfortably in Act 2 and the credits roll.
Exactly.
It really synthesizes a very uncomfortable truth about the modern digital landscape. I mean, when we picture the most dangerous cybercriminal in history, we naturally imagine someone hiding in a dark, paranoid, subterranean bunker, constantly looking over their shoulder, terrified of a knock at the door.
Like they're always on the run.
Right. We assume a life of crime requires a life of hiding. But the true nature of modern cyber warfare is that the perpetrators can live in broad daylight, completely immune to consequences. They can have families, take vacations to the beach, and own exotic pets.
Because the concept of consequences only exists if the legal frameworks overlap. And here, they fundamentally don't. The internet connects us all seamlessly, but legal systems are still stuck in the 19th century.
That is the core of it. The FBI's failure wasn't a lack of technical skill. I mean, they did the impossible by temporarily killing the botnet.
Right, they won the technical fight.
They did. Their failure was a fundamental inability to bridge the gap between digital actions and physical accountability. Bogachev weaponized the very nature of physical sovereignty.
To use the map against them.
Yes, he exploited the scene between global connectivity and divided political borders. And by doing so, he achieved total impunity.
It is a staggering David and Goliath inversion. You have this massive 11-country, tens of millions of dollars operation, the absolute Goliath of global law enforcement. And it was entirely, effortlessly undone by one untouchable man in his apartment in just 5 weeks.
It's incredibly humbling for law enforcement.
It really is. It makes you rethink the power dynamics of the 21st century. The guy with the laptop and the right zip code holds all the cards.
It absolutely does. It proves that in the digital age, a single architect with the right algorithm and the right geographic shield can outmaneuver the combined military and intelligence apparatus of the Western world.
Well, we want to thank everyone for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of modern cybercrime. It's a story that is as frustrating as it is fascinating, and it really peels back the curtain on how the invisible wars of our time are actually being fought and, in many ways, lost.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, returning to that idea of the physical fortress we discussed at the very beginning.
Yeah, let's hear it.
If the largest coordinated global operation in human history, backed by the world's most powerful governments and nearly limitless resources, can be completely neutralized by one man sitting at a laptop, does the concept of digital law enforcement actually exist? Or are we all just relying on the comforting but ultimately hollow illusion of security?
A chilling question to end on. Thanks for diving deep with us.